Hey, this is Paulo, and this is Mind Your Own Business.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, everybody. Excited to be here. I have Jim Lezzer with me, and I'm going to let him do the introductions. So, Jim, thank you for being here. Let's talk about you and your company.
Sure. Hi, Pablo. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on your podcast. I'm really excited to talk with you and to share with your listeners today. I guess as a little bit of an introduction, little background. So I am the director of strategic partnerships at a company called Medbridge Education, based out of Seattle. And our company it's a continuing education solution that is driven around physical therapists, uh, occupational therapists, speech language pathologists. So basically, anybody who is a professional working in the rehab space, um, then we have the continuing education that they need to support their ongoing career development and making sure they're able to maintain their licensure. And we also have a engagement platform that allows those clinicians to prescribe exercises and education. So a lot of people are very familiar with us because they'll say, "Oh, I had a knee surgery or something," and they know us from the therapy side because their provider prescribed the exercises through MedBridge. So
Oh, well, that's amazing. So, and I'm curious to know maybe your why. What's your why thinking about working for Medbridge?
thank you. So for me, I've spent most of my career working in healthcare in some way. And a lot of that was really on what's known as the revenue cycle side of healthcare. So that's really helping hospitals be more efficient with coding, with billing, and making sure that they're getting paid for what services they provided. So coming into MedBridge, I had an opportunity to really kind of shift and be more on the clinician side and be more aligned with helping clinicians work um, at the top of their license as well as impacting their patients. And so, what I love about MedBridge really is the mission and vision. We have an incredibly smart group of people on the team who are all focused on improving lives through education. So, it's a really great mission that I love to be a part of.
That's great. Merging those two, I think they're very. We need to double down on health and education. I mean, we like like everybody's concerned about them about these topics, but how do we connect the two, right? So and that's what MedBridge is doing and is helping. So, and that's amazing. Just wanted to acknowledge that, and I want to ask maybe someone out there feels stuck, they don't know, they want to pivot their career or they just feel stuck in their lives professional wise. What advice would you give to them?
So, feeling stuck is certainly not an uncommon feeling at any point in your career. I know I've felt stuck a lot of times, and even on a day to day basis, we'll be like, man, I'm just not sure what to do. What's the best next step? What's the right thing? Um, and I think, I heard this about a year ago, and I love the metaphor because I think it's a great visual and it makes a lot of sense. Is that you know, most of the time we're constantly like sailing away from land, right out to the open ocean. So you see this just massive blue horizon with nothing on it. And you keep thinking, I've got so far to go, so far to go. And if there's a speck of something out there, it's so far away. Look how far I have to go. And you kind of have to take this step back and turn around and look at where you came from and then see how far you've gotten to date. And I think if you can find ways to help you measure that progress and to kind of force that self-reflection, it's a great way to kind of unstick yourself because then you're not feeling like I still have all this way to go. I just have to do the next couple things in front of me.
And I guess that goes also for, let's say I want to start, maybe I don't feel stuck. I just want, well, in a way, maybe I'm starting something new because I felt stuck recently, but maybe I want to try something new in my life. And so I want to, what I'm hearing you say is maybe I don't want to focus 100% on only the goal, but also on the process of getting there and making like small steps. Is that?
Yeah, and it's funny because recently it just kind of came into recent conversations I was having. People were talking about the idea of, you know, goals and targets and really differentiating them. And I think most people put those two as the exact same thing, right? And that's not really true. If you stop and think about it, a goal is like, oh, I want to start my own business and I want it to be generating X number of dollars per year, or allow me to uh, be completely independent and work on my own, run my own schedule, right? And a target is more concrete than that. It's more focused. It's, I need to make, you know, X number of dollars in the next 90 days. Like for me to be on target to reaching that goal, you're looking at those points. So I think, for people who, when you tend to get stuck, it's usually because you don't have a metric to measure against, to where you can look back and go, are we doing what we were supposed to be doing? Are we still on direction to where we were planning to go? So the more you can incorporate those smaller metrics, those target metrics, to say, we got the right number of calls, right number of sales, right number of whatever, we're on target, or we fell short, what do I need to step up and do? I think that helps you to kind of look at things to where you're not trying to get this massive goal of how do I start this and grow this to be whatever, right? That's huge. It's no, I just need to focus on next number of calls, next number of sales, next number of whatever it is.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And going back to healthcare and you know America, what would be your reflection about America's healthcare today? How can we help each other? What can we do as a community? Maybe like not involved in the industry, with from within, but is there something we can do as a community to help?
So I think there's kind of a shift that's taken place in healthcare over the last several years. And it was something that was discussed when I got into healthcare. We had a 30-year problem that was already in existence. Of there were too few nurses. um, Healthcare was very passive in terms of, you know when I grew up, it was, you go to you have something wrong, you're sick, you go to the doctor tells you what to do, right? And what you see right now is there's just an amazing number of products that are coming out and being creative to serve different facets of the healthcare system. And it really is almost overwhelming. Like, as from a patient, I can't even imagine. From my perspective, I live on strategic partnerships, so I'm in this looking at it every day and identifying where these different gaps exist within care. So, and what you're seeing is healthcare is kind of flipped from this passive mode, where go to the doctor tells you what to do, you go home, to people are becoming much more um, advocates for their own health and wellness, right? And so providers love that, because an engaged patient who wants to take charge of their health is easy to work with. So that's somebody who says, I don't want just medication. I want diet, exercise, fitness programs. I want, all the things that I need to do that are going to make me uh, live longer, live better, age well, those types of things. So I think, you know, the problem that I think a lot of people struggle with how do we help each other in healthcare, is that uh, it's a massive ecosystem. And so when you start looking at it, it's almost the same thing as the goals targets conversation, that somebody else has already started to solve this problem, right? So you've got to go look for the smaller issue that you're trying to get at. And I think the more you can focus in on um, what you're trying to solve with your provider, and the more pointed those questions are, the better results you will get from
And then so, and not to compare, but I connect that with sales. Sales used to be this, um, how to call it, like outreach salesy, type of persona. And now we're looking at a more buyer centric uh, um, scenario, I would say, in which the buyer, or in case the patient, they have a lot of information, so they're more informed, so they can go and be. It becomes this more interactive and less passive, back and forth, and not back and forth, but mm, process, I would say. So not to compare sales with healthcare, but I do see that maybe it connects somehow, and you're in both.
Yeah, I'm in both. Absolutely. And I think, you raise a great point. The buyer or the patient has a lot more information, and in a lot of cases, a lot more misinformation, right? They have, in case of patients in healthcare, they go to WebMD. Well, WebMD is the worst place you can go because everything leads to cancer and death. It's like you're 3 clicks away from finding out you have a rare disease that no one's heard of that is immediate. It's death in 90 days. And it's like, no, that's not the case most of the time. It's more of a case of, um, you're just being misinformed, and it's probably the most likely condition is probably something very simple that can be treated well. Um, I think, in regard to customers, and when you transition that and you say, okay, looking at it from the other lens and from a sales perspective, um, I think for customers, they run into that same story. And the problem is that in sales training, right? Everybody's seeking out the magic bullet, right? The always be closing, cold calling's a waste of time, 10x rule, take massive action. And those aren't bad ideas. But the problem is that they're these little silver bullets or magic bullets that people think, oh, well, that's the answer to how I hit quota, I achieve my goals, I get all those things I want to do. And I think, the problem is that it comes down to thoughtful activity. It comes down to trust and transparency. Those to me are the keys that if you're going to be successful in sales, building trusted relationships, being transparent in your conversations, being very clear about what your needs are and what you want, and also making sure that your partner or your client is getting what they need and what they want. It kind of changes that whole conversation, and that really is, it's a magic bullet in a way. The problem is it's just not immediate, right? So that's it. Your goal is building long-term relationships where people are going to keep coming back and trusting you.
Oh, I love that. And I'm curious, Jim, is there a specific mindset or a recommended mindset you need to develop or have, to be a successful individual, for sales, partnerships, but for anything related to any business?
You know, I would think that it comes down to number one is being very clear on in your mind on what you want and what you need, right? And then avoiding shiny objects, right? And what I mean by that is, you know, um, and it was funny when I came into Medbridge and I first started meeting with our CEO, who's a brilliant man. Really loved having conversations with him, and one of the things he talked about was the concept of death by opportunity, right? There's meaning that there's too many things that you could go do, but if your mission is I want to go build this, like Elon Musk, we're going to space. Okay, we're going to space. Like that was the focus. They knew they're going to space. Somehow they're going to make the rocket go up, they're going to make the rocket come back, they're going to do all these things, they're going to space. Like, so it's such a singular focus that you're not over here distracted by other things. And so if you look at like their business lines, for example, if you're looking at Tesla, the cars are the cars, space is space, this is this. Like it's very focused in those channels, and everybody's got their their vision on that goal and what we need to do to achieve that goal. So I think that's probably one of the biggest mindsets is number one being focused, and then behind that focusing on building those relationships where there is that trust and transparency, and your goal is it's not just close the deal today, it's close a deal for a lifetime. That if even if we don't do business today, we might do business 10 years from now, and I want to set up that relationship that we're going to continue to be friends, whether I'm in this role or in a different role down the road.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And yeah, it's not this because people hear sales, and you typically go, "Ooh, this is this is the wolf or the shark or some other animal," and but no, it's try to help and gonna build these relationships that if you do it right, they'll go, they'll last a long time. And I'm curious about, because you did mention avoid or stay away from shiny objects and also be patient. And I think we, like this generation, or I'm talking about my generation, or today's world is so impatient. We want everything just right now, right this second. And so there are apps for it. Everything needs to be done right now, and we're kind of losing that mentality, which I think is very important. Like the object is the goal is important, but also like the steps needed to get there, and also to be patient and just to work every day patiently towards that goal. So I think you have a great point there, Jim.
Yeah, and I think, and it's challenging because sales is one of those roles where it is relentlessly focused on results. I mean, you've got to produce, right? In other roles, it doesn't matter. If you're an accountant, you're an accountant. You just keep track of the numbers all day long. But if you're in sales, you're accountable to say, I've got to hit my month, my quarter, my half year, my year, whatever the metrics are. And I think the hard part with that is that um, because people are looking for the instantaneous result, um, sometimes there's just not enough ramp given to people and not enough runway, and to say um, who is you know the performer who's going to be a good performer long term. And it doesn't matter as much that they're not hitting those initial early targets. It's really when are they hitting their stride, and when they hit it, then they're going to be clicking every quarter, every month. You're not having to think about them because they know how to go into those conversations, be authentic, be transparent, and they're focused on the outcome for that client or for that customer, making sure the customer is going to walk away going, this was a great experience and I got my needs met. And yeah, I probably paid a little bit more, but it's okay because at least I know who to go call, and I'm going to have somebody who sincerely wants to help me on the back end. That goes contrary to a lot of sales training and a lot of the flash and stuff you see on TikTok and things like that. But I think that's really the organizations that are really focused on building for the long term are looking at it through that lens.
I was about to ask you, like, what would you like to have known before going into the sales slash marketing within the health industry? But I think you covered uh, covered it. But is there something else that you would like to have known beforehand?
I think the only thing I could say to anybody who's looking at going into healthcare is, persistence is really, really key. Healthcare it's big, it's complex, there's a lot of moving parts, and it's moving very quickly and it reacts to different things. COVID is a great example, right? We went from, on one day, you had people going in, healthcare operated as normal, to the a week later, no surgeries are getting done. That was a sea change for healthcare. So for them to figure that out, you're moving thousands of people on a totally different mission overnight, and that the fact that they pulled it off is amazing. Like the fact that there wasn't more meltdown is amazing. So for somebody who's selling into that, you've got to be patient, you've got to be persistent, you've got to be listening to how can I help, and kind of come from that lens.
Perfect. I wish we were more patient. Uh, in general, like in the SaaS industry, I don't know, real estate, everything needs to be, you know, I think that's my opinion. Anyway, and what advice would you give, Jim, to your 20-year old self?
So I've got a couple things. I think the overarching theme is, think directionally rather than defining a fixed point of success, right? It's very easy to look at success and say, "Oh, I'm living in this city, this town, this neighborhood, this house, driving this car, wearing this, going here for vacation," and that's the definition of success. And here's a great example. So my son is 14, and he has a dream of working for NASA. Right? He's a super smart kid. I don't have a doubt in my mind that he could achieve this. He absolutely could. Um, but the problem is that when you say, you know, I want to work for NASA, right? Well, you're looking at that saying that that's the only definition of success is working for NASA. So I kind of coaching them to reframe that question or reframe that statement to say, based on what I know today, I'd love to work for NASA. Now, as you start going in and learning new things, that doesn't just limit you to this very narrow view of what's success. It opens it up to, oh, I'm going to learn other things. And it's not just NASA. I could work for Tesla. I could work for some company that hasn't been invented yet, or I could create my own business. Um, and that is my definition of success. It changed because the information changed, and I allowed myself to take a broader view and be willing to accept that information as it came in.
And that's interesting because taking that just as an example, what happens when you do start your position at NASA? Like your life won't stop magically just because you were
Right.
there. You achieved your goal, but then what? Uh,
Right. You got to reset a goal,
yeah,
and you have to come up with a new one. So,
and I loved the based on the information I have today, because sometimes we are very hard on ourselves, or with family, or something else, but we did what we thought was the best with the information we had at that moment. It's not like we intentionally wanted to, I don't know, make a big mistake, or a poor choice, or what have you. It was it was based on the information I had at that moment. So it also serves, I think, as a way to look like reset and then refocus and then just, I don't know, calibrate. But yeah,
absolutely. I totally get where you're coming from. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Amazing. And Jim, what has been the a book or seminar or YouTube video that has influenced you the most?
So I love Simon Sinek, and I think he's got some great stuff out there. But the one that keeps popping up again and again and again for me, and it shows up on LinkedIn all the time. It shows up in TikTok and other places all the time that I'll be scrolling, and it's the talk that he does about Navy SEALs, the Navy SEALs, and trust. And I love watching it every time because it talks about the idea of the Navy SEALs look at, they gauge trust on one hand and performance on another. And what we see is, short story is that the high performing, low trust person is a toxic leader, and that's the person you don't want in the organization, and they will weed that person out. They'd rather have the high trust and even perhaps middle performing person, because that's the person they know that they can count on. And I think that that's a great way to kind of look at life through the lens of who you are and how to be. And I mean, I think it serves your clients well. I think it serves your colleagues well, and it serves your family well when people can sit there and say, I know I can trust you. I know you're not always going to hit the benchmarks, or you may not always meet it, that, or you may not meet my goal, but you're getting us where we need to go. And I think that's a really valuable mentality to have, because at the end of the day, trust is more important than performance, but you still are striving to perform.
I somewhere I cannot remember. I saw like a person comparing like responsibility with the ability to respond. So if you're responsible, you will respond for it. Could be my mistake. Yeah, that's like I own it. Or it could be, yeah, like we're on board of here we're a team, or however the situation. But the ability to be there, face it and respond, it's to be responsible. And I connect that to what you just said. And I do love Simon Sinek a lot. So uh, I think it's great. And I'm
Excellent.
yeah, and I'm curious, Jim. Do you have any favorite failures? Has any failure a failure led to future success or to future, yeah, positive outcome?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, so it's funny. It's really funny. I've got a funny story for that. So right before I got the job at Medbridge, I had interviewed with another company in Boston, and I won't mention their name, but and I was right there. Like I was in, it was two candidates. I was one of those two candidates. It came down to this other candidate and I, and basically the other candidate beat me out of the role. And I would have loved to have been in this job. Like this was such a great job. Really cool technology, everything. I was excited about it. And I got a call that basically I got beat out because the other candidate had already been doing a job that was very similar. So they went, she's got experience that you don't have. Well, the ironic part was, here I am now on the plane flying out to go interview at Medbridge. And as I'm sitting there, I get on the plane next to this person in Chicago. We had a layover in Chicago. I get on the plane, I'm sitting next to her. We start talking, going back and forth, and I'm saying I'm going for a job interview, blah, blah, blah. It turns out this is the person who beat me out of that job. Yeah. I mean, what sat next to me on that flight? Yep. So, yeah, it was the weird, talk about a failure leading to success. What was amazing was she's absolutely amazing person, to where, I went, I see why they hired you. I mean, and when I landed, I actually messaged the guys that I had interviewed with, and I basically said, "Hey, this is the weirdest thing in the world, but I just flew with so and so from Chicago to Seattle, and she is absolutely amazing. I think she's going to be the right candidate. I totally get why you hired her." Like, and it created this relationship with them that's lasted through that. And um, I don't, I don't know that she's still there, but it was one of those things that, had I gotten that job, it wouldn't have led me to doing what I'm doing, which I love doing. And also it wouldn't have, I don't know that it would have opened up that same level of relationship that I was able to create, that connection between her and I, and then as well with those guys who I had interviewed with as at the company.
That's amazing. That's I never never heard something like that. And let's say we don't have that level of what universal magic in future, and we don't meet our competitors during a flight or ex competitors or what have you. and but we still want to bounce back from failure. So if we don't get lucky enough to have that magical moment, how do you typically bounce back from a challenging situation, something that's hard in your life?
I I think it comes down to putting everything into perspective, right? And it's like what I talked about at the top of this, where I say, the hard part is that you look at a failure and you're kind of like burdened with the weight of it in the moment. You're sitting there going, "Oh, I can't believe I didn't get this. Like we worked so hard at it, blah blah blah," and all this other stuff. And you've got to take a step back and go, wait a minute, what did we learn? What did we miss? And yeah, it hurts, to fail. It hurts to lose, and I get that. But the reality is you probably most of the time when you're in that situation where you failed or you didn't get what you were hoping for, you lost the deal or whatever it is. Um, the reality is you probably did everything you could have done, right? With the information you had. But if you don't then learn from it and say, well, what could I learn? How could I be better? How could I improve this next time? Constantly refining the process. Like look at everything as a process, run it back through the process, go, where did the process fail? And then that's probably the place that you can fix. And it gives you a sense of being able to control it, right? Rather than this helpless, like, I failed and I have no control over it. I just failed. Okay. No, I failed because I didn't do this well, or I missed these things, or I didn't do this well, I didn't do that well. I can fix those things and now I do them better. And then you're going to be in a world where you probably won't fail for those same reasons. You might fail for something else, but at least it gives you the ability to take that weight off and go, I can control this, I can fix it.
Also, very important there to be in control. Like we want to be in control of our lives. Like you know, the less control we have over whatever we do, our job or our calendar, our education or something else, the 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 worse it is for our mental health. So that's another key aspect of owning that process, and just try to be detective there and just spot the places where I failed, and then don't beat yourself up, I guess, but instead learn from them.
Yeah, I think yeah, exactly. I think the pandemic really showed us, like, sense of control over your life, right? You look at it and you go, one day, I mean, and for me, I was went from traveling probably 50, 60% of the time to hadn't left the house, um, like on a business trip, for 18 months. So you look at something like that and you go, okay, well, we can't go out, we can't go to restaurants, we can't go to bars or games or events or concerts or whatever, right? So, how do you then turn that around and make it valuable for you? How do you fix that, right? What can you take control over? Well, I can take control over that. I'm going to exercise more. I'm going to take control over that. We're going to do movie night. We're going to do game night. We're going to do whatever it is, right? Um, and you can change. You can change what you were doing. You're not just focused on that outcome. You're focused more on the process of getting what getting through your day and getting through life. And if you're focused on that process, then the outcome really is doesn't matter whether you know uh, you got to go to the concert or you got to go to this or that, whatever it is. Like you're able to say, oh no, at least I know how I run my day. I know how we live. I know how when to turn off things and walk away from work, when to have time for myself, when to have that mental gap and break, so that you're not overwhelmed.
100%. And talking about that not turn off, that turning off your mind, and how to how to make that shift. I wanted to ask about mental health, especially in the corporate America. What would be your opinion about that?
I think is there's it's getting a lot of attention right now, right? Because I think people are coming out of the pandemic, um, feeling a lot of burnout. You know, we all got shifted into the same world where there wasn't anything else to do, right? You're not commuting, so now all of a sudden your day got automatically longer. Um, because you're going, well, I'm still used to getting up, I'm still used to commuting to work and doing all those things. So you just added that time on the front and back end of your day, so days got longer. Um, with video meetings, with things like that, everything seemed like calendars got compressed and filled with this, we have to check in, we have to engage, and all these other things, to where it was hard for a lot of people, I think, to say, well, I'm in meetings all day, how do I get work done? And so I'm doing it after hours. um, or just extending the day. And I heard there was a great article recently talking about there's a third productivity spike that's starting to appear. It's like 10 a.m. It's, I think, 3 p.m. or something like that. And then again, or it was, I'm sorry, 10 a.m., 7 p.m., and now 10 p.m. is starting to show up as the third productivity spike in a day. And so you look at that and you go, no, 10 p.m. should never be a third productivity spike. Like that should just not happen. You should be done. You should be reading. You should be doing, able to walk away from work, you know. And I think the hardest part is, um, it's hard sometimes to say no and to compress, like block out focus time during the day. But I think that's invaluable because there's a lot of work that we do as business professionals. It's thinking work. You just have to stop and stare out the window and think about this problem, or think about nothing while you're thinking about this problem. And then you can start to say, okay, that's how I could see how I can put that together. And give yourself that beat to breathe. Otherwise, you just you just get burned out. You just can't keep going at this frenetic pace.
Oh yeah, and I, I've been guilty of that, especially the 10 p.m. I thought it was only me who actually wanted to. Let me just send a couple of emails here and there, and just write this or have this report done just because I don't want to be worried about that tomorrow morning. But then it becomes this hour long shift that I'm doing all of a sudden, and then it's work, and you're right, it shouldn't be, and yeah, something to work on. Jim, this has been a great conversation. I do want to be mindful of your time. Where do you find you online? And any final thoughts or comments?
So I'm on LinkedIn. You can look me up. It's under James Lezzer, or LinkedIn slash, I think it's JF Lezzer is the name. But I can definitely send you the link so you could add that to the show notes. Yeah, I mean that's the best place to find me, is on LinkedIn. So yeah, love to connect, and you'll see when you visit my profile, or your guests visit my profile, that I'm open to connecting. The only thing I ask is, how can I help you? Please tell me that when you reach out. That's super helpful to be able to know where to direct you to, and who in my contact list I can point you to if I can't help you directly.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Jim. Take care.
All right, Pablo, thank
Bye bye.
you.